Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast.
Well, hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio. Each and every week, we keep you informed, engaged, and entertained about the Montreal Canadiens, who just won a playoff game. We are going to talk about it this week on Canadiens Display Grit, Heart, and Resilience against the Capitals, episode 345. Of the Canadiens Connection podcast. In case you are new in these parts, my name is Amy Johnson. I'm going to be your host for today's show. And of course, I can't do this alone. I am very pleased to be joined each and every week in the studio by my co-host, who also happens to be the founder and president here at Rocket Sports. His name is Rick Stevens. And have you peeled yourself off the ceiling yet, like every Habs fan around the globe is probably still trying to do today?
We got the long-time loyal Habs fans that have been through a lot and seen it all and been waiting for the playoffs for some time now. And you got some new people boarding the train that are wondering what's all this, this playoff thing? What's all the excitement? Why is Montreal so abuzz with talk about the Canadiens and the playoffs and the intrigue of it all? And you want intrigue, go to the no, it's not the NFL draft. When's so sure Deion Sanders' son going to be picked? He was picked finally in the fifth round.
Boy.
I think.
Boy.
Cleveland pick 144, something like that.
Good luck.
Poor guy.
Not
Really.
No.
We're gonna have to get Brian our
insert Tom Wilson crying gif.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, perfect.
Right there.
Oh, that's a perfect connection.
Yeah.
No, there was an intro. I don't know which game, Dallas, Colorado, and the announcer said the NHL playoffs are volatile, erratic, and unforgiving. And I thought that's pretty good, actually.
That sums up Game 3 for the Canadiens and Capitals.
It does, absolutely.
And so we are going to talk about that, but we are going to talk about a lot of things in terms of this series of the Canadiens playing against the Washington Capitals. We're gonna walk you through each of the first 3 games of the season, because at the time of us recording this podcast, it is Saturday, and so they have made it through 3 games in the series. We're going to talk about those first 3 games and what a difference each one really was. Each one of those games kind of had its own characterizations, its own identity, and we're going to talk about that a bit. Also going to get you an update on some roster things, some injury items, things of that nature. Yes, we are still going to do a Habs prospect report this week because one of the Canadiens affiliates is currently already in the playoffs and really buzzing their way through it. The other one is about to begin their playoff run. So we're going to get you caught up on all of that, as well.
And there's a prospect setting records.
And there's a prospect setting records that you need to know about. And we're going to get you caught up on all. There's a ton of big news from around the NHL that we're going to get you caught up on. All of that's in the first segment. Then after we take a quick break, we're going to come back for segment 2. And we're going to get into our big topic, which is how the Canadiens are earning respect this playoff series. We are going to talk about, rewind 8 months or so. No one expected the Canadiens to make an impact this season. No one certainly expected the Canadiens to make the playoffs. And now that they're in the playoffs, I don't think anyone expected the Canadiens to be really kind of hanging in with the Capitals as much as they are. And in some ways, really trying to turn the tide on them. And so we're going to talk about how they're doing that, what isn't contributing to that. And we're going to have some great audio clips and things of that coming up. So you're not going to want to miss any of that. We have a terrific Canadiens Connection question of the week for you. That's where We ask you a question every week. We want to hear your replies, and we'll run down the list of how you can send in your replies to us. And then we take a look at all of those throughout the week, pick out the best ones, and then read them out on the air in the next show next week. So the way to contact us, whether it's answering the Canadiens Connection question of the week, or if you just want to make a comment, if you have a question, if you have something to say about the Canadiens that you just have to get off your chest, if you want to shout it from the rooftops, send us a text on the Rocket Sports text line. That's 5853-ROCKET. Again, 5853-ROCKET. Drop us a comment on our YouTube channel. You can find that at InsideTheCanadiens.com, or just hit us up on social media at Habs Connection, X, Facebook, Instagram. Leave us a reply, drop us a DM. Just send in your comments, your replies. We want to hear them. So it's been a week. Game 1 started on Monday night in Washington. It was obvious it took the first half of the first period for things to just kind of settle into place. You could tell everyone was a little nervous. Everyone was kind of feeling everybody out on both sides of the ice. There were a bunch of Canadians who were playing in their very first ever NHL playoff game. Sam Montembeault, Caden Gooley, Yuri Slafkovsky, Jaden Struble, Emil Heineman, Laine Hudson, Ivan Demidov. So there were a lot of nerves, both sides of the ice, but then things kind of got real serious. The Capitals turned things on. The Capitals got comfortable. The Capitals and their veteran experience and their physicality got real comfortable. And in the long run, Montreal did take it to extra minutes, but Washington was the ultimate victors in Game 1, winning 3-2 in overtime.
Yeah, it was Ovechkin scoring a couple minutes into overtime, but the Canadiens took it to overtime, and it didn't look that way when the game began. It was clear that the Capitals were trying to run the Canadiens out of the building. The Canadiens were on the receiving end of some enormous physical punishment, which led to them being timid, and they were fumbling the pucks and some uncharacteristic behavior from players like a Caden Gooley. Gooley said afterwards, he said, that was the fastest game I've ever played, but I had no idea what to expect in terms of speed of the game, the physicality, and Marty St. Louis after the game said, listen, you can't practice it, you just have to live it, and we did. We lived it. So it was kind of, I don't know. There's got to be prep. You've got like, this wasn't a group. You mentioned the 7 Canadians that were making their playoff debut, but there were 6 Canadians that went all the way to the Stanley Cup final in 2021. So not a group of neophytes. There must and Marty, tons of knowledge. There must be some way of passing that on. In preparation, practice, setting your lineups in important games, leading up to the playoffs. Anyway, they gained that knowledge quickly in that first game, and as such, the Capitals had 42 hits in such a physical game. You're looking for players like Yuri Slafkovsky. He struggled. There was no second line to be seen of the Canadiens. Alex Newhook couldn't win a faceoff, and that's what after the icing. That's what led to the goal in overtime. Patrik Laine was a non-factor, and Jaden Struble struggled, and it really looked like the Capitals' intention was to intimidate the Canadiens and send the message that you guys don't belong in this series. Now, I'm not sure that message was received necessarily, because the Canadiens came back, and as I say, after that difficult first period, took them to overtime and looked like they did belong. Maybe a different story in game 2.
Game 2, now this one finished in regular minutes, just took 60 minutes for this one, and Montreal was only able to get on the board once. Washington ended up winning both of the first 2 games on home ice, beating them 3-1 in this second one. And it got like, if the physicality and the hard hits were there in the first game, it just started to get a little nasty in the second, and the cross checks in particular. I know Brendan Gallagher took a cross check to the face that he wasn't too happy about. There was the nicked out on Cole Caulfield. Caulfield crumpled to the ice. There was a lot going on physicality wise in that game.
Yeah, Washington again controlled the first period, outshot Montreal 9-4. It was in the second period where they really took control, outshooting Montreal 18-8. So 27-12 over the first 40 minutes. Christian Dvorak opened the scoring early in the second period, but it was Connor McMichael and Dylan Strom. Dylan Strom had 3 assists in the first in game 1. Then scored his first goal, and then McMichael with an empty netter to seal it in the third period. But yeah, it was a lot of the talk was about the officiating and that missed call, let's say, on Cole Caulfield. I think that Canadiens fans need to remind themselves that the criterion changes a little bit in the playoffs.
Oh, for sure.
And Canadiens fans were cheering in 2021 when Shea Weber, Ben Sherrod, Edmondson, they cross-checked the Canadiens into the Cup final in 2021. At that time, they had a big physical defense, and that was their bread and butter, a different type of defense. So I think it's not something we should be necessarily surprised at. In this game, Patrik Laine didn't play in the third period, whether he was benched for his lack of interest or his lack of production or injury. We don't know. It led to some creative line juggling by Marty St. Louis. I got to give him credit for coming up with Newhook playing on the wing. He had struggled with face-offs in game 1, as I mentioned. Evans at center and Demidov on the right side. And that line was pretty effective. Demidov looked like he was playing not to make a mistake a
little timid
in game 1, but in game 2 started to emerge. And I think it was mostly he didn't have an opportunity to really have the puck in game 1 because of his line mates. A little bit better in game 2, and he's gotten better as the series has gone on. Just 10 minutes for David Savard and Jaden Struble. They weren't good. Matheson was the Canadiens' worst defenseman, worst game scorer, lots of turnovers. This one might have taken the wind out of the Canadiens' sails more than game 1.
And I think it's probably fortunate for them that game happened in the game 2 scenario, which then allowed them to switch venues to Montreal and the Bell Center for game 3. Obviously, to say there was a buzz in the city of Montreal would be a massive understatement. As the broadcasters were wont to remind everyone on Friday night, the Canadiens have not had a full capacity Bell Center for a playoff game in 8 years. The playoff run in 2021 was still during COVID protocols, and so the building was only about half full at that point in time. So it's been a long time coming since the Bell Center was packed to the rim for a playoff game. The city of Montreal and its fans and the team itself were hyped for it. They were ready for it. And boy, did this Game 3 deliver on all levels of entertainment, on all levels of nerves, and all levels of, physicality, skill, you name it, it was on display. And this time around, despite the fact that the Canadiens went down early 1-0, Washington scored first. It was McMichael again. Even though they went down early, they stuck to their guns. They stayed with Washington, put up 3 unanswered goals in the third period with a decisive 6-3 victory. But there's a whole lot of other stuff that transpired in that 60 minutes that we're going to have to talk about.
And just grabbing that description again, volatile, erratic, unforgiving.
Yeah.
It was all of that, plus wild, plus chaotic. It was, you can't get that game in a regular season.
No.
It was just incredible, the number of storylines that came out of that game. Amazing. The Canadiens, during the regular season, they have been known to come back, and they scored 3 unanswered goals in the third with the win. Christian Dvorak with a game winner. Yuri Slafkovsky added a goal to make it 5-3. It was, and in all of that chaos and in all of that buzz and energy that was in the Bell Center. After the game, it was Yuri Slafkovsky saying we had to work hard to control our emotions. And yeah, because it was incredible and certainly had an effect on both teams. The second period bench entering incident after the benches were cleared for players leaving the ice. The bench entering incident with Josh Anderson, Tom Wilson, and a linesman. Haven't seen that before. Those two.
We all know I'm a Flyers fan outside of hockey journalism, so this just brought back every feel-good Broad Street Bully moment for me. Like, it was just phenomenal to watch.
The two of them sat for the first 12 minutes of the third period, but that was probably as Yuri Slafkovsky said, if you're going to go to the box, take someone with you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened there. They were each fined after the game. Office of Player Safety for unsportsmanlike conduct. Could have been worse. They could have been, it could have been game misconducts. And that, I was going to say poor linesman, but I don't know why he would get in between. That was a dangerous incident, I thought. The stat sheet says that Montreal out-hit Washington 45-26. And yes, Montreal had the advantage in the physical play. But listen, stats compiled by off-ice NHL officials are notoriously unreliable throughout the league, but particularly in Montreal, and it's been that way for years. So we'll take those exact numbers with a grain of salt. And then the other part of it was the goalie injuries.
It was mind-boggling
that both starting goaltenders were forced to leave the game. Jakub Dobeš replaced Sam Montembeault with about 8 minutes and 20 seconds left in the second period. And then in the third period, it was Charlie Lindgren coming in to replace Logan Thompson. There was an emergency backup goalie for Montreal cited. It was incredible. All of the storylines, all of the aspects of the game, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the second segment.
We are, but Yuri Slafkovsky, his emotions after the game were palpable. He did a live hit with the TNT crew with Liam McHugh, Paul Bissonnette, Henrik Lundqvist, that kind of thing. And he was still really pumped up from the game. And in the post-game scrums back in the dressing room, he made it clear that he could definitely get used to this kind of hockey atmosphere.
No, it was something crazy. Like I said, I never experienced something like that. Like today, the crowd was amazing, and I hope we can bring more and more playoff games to this building, and we can win some games, because this is probably the best feeling.
He was very excited.
Very excited.
And you mentioned that interview with TNT. He was very impressed to be asked a question
by Henrik Lundqvist.
By Henrik Lundqvist. Yeah,
his face lit up.
You can tell how young he is, and he's enjoying this immensely.
Oh, Henrik Lundqvist is asking me a question. Okay. There were obviously lots of attention and lots of questions during the game and after the game about this, not a bench clearing brawl. It was a bench filling brawl between Josh Anderson and Tom Wilson, which, yes, I immediately tweeted, someone get me a GIF of Tom Wilson doing the crybaby thing. Immediately, I will use that for the rest of my life, probably every day. It is going to be the best. That was just absolutely priceless. Spencer Carberry, as you said, was kind of caught in the middle of it as well, because he was still, he and his coaches hadn't left, and the trainers hadn't left the bench yet to go to their dressing room. And so here is what he had to say after the game about the whole incident.
Well, I was on my way to walk across the ice, because you have to walk across at the Bell Center. So then I had to reverse my course and head back, because there was two large individuals coming through the door that I was trying to exit. So just two competitive teams, two competitive guys going.
He had a front row view, literally, and in fact, his trainer reached out and grabbed him, kind of pulled him out of the way, because, as he said, it was Anderson and Tom Wilson with a linesman sandwiched in between that were making their way down the Washington bench. Quite not something you see every day, or if ever.
The big part of the big buzz in this game was the fact that Habs fans, particularly seeing Rick, I think even you and I had discussed this after game one, after seeing how Washington had kind of manhandled the Canadiens in game one. Will Marty bring Jack-Eye in for game two, or will he not want to mess with his lines? And of course, the answer to that was no, he didn't want to change the lines. So Jack-Eye wasn't there again for game two, and there was the physicality had ramped up even more. So it was known by early in the day on Friday that Arber Jack-Eye would be slotting in. And the Bell Center practically erupted just when he took the ice for warmups. Was much talked about that he and Tom Wilson were chirping during warmups at each other already. To his credit, the thing I said to myself was Jack-Eye needs to stay focused and not take stupid penalties in this game. And to his credit, he didn't do that. He didn't take the bait, and there were some times that he could have. But he and Tom Wilson were absolutely yapping at each other while Josh Anderson is fighting Tom Wilson on the bench and whatnot. Here's what Jack-Eye had to say about that whole moment.
I mean, that's hockey for you. It was the craziest thing ever. I never seen a fight on a bench like that. But I mean, yeah, it's hockey, and that's how it goes.
It's just hockey.
Yeah, it's just hockey. That's all.
That's how
it's the playoffs. He was obviously an interested spectator, would have liked to have been involved, but as you said, to his credit, didn't take a penalty. Was on the ice for 10 minutes, delivered 4 hits. It was a good, controlled game for Arber Xhekaj, and that's not to say that he certainly was trying to get under the skin and announce his presence during warm-ups and with his hits, that I think he did make a big difference to the game.
I think so too. Just him being there, it brings a different energy. And I think the fans know that. I think his teammates know that. And, well, if they didn't before, his opponents know that now as well. As Rick said, we're gonna get much more into what has happened in that game in particular and all three games that have already taken place, plus what happens next. We're gonna dive deeper into that into the second segment. So hold your thoughts on games 1, 2, and 3 for now. We are going to get back to them very shortly. But first, let's just get you up to speed on the roster. So as Rick mentioned, Laine didn't take a shift in the third period of game 2. He was not in the lineup at all for game 3. He was replaced by Oliver Kapanen, with the Canadiens saying that right now he's got an upper body injury and will be evaluated on a daily basis. So that is a giant question mark for right now.
And we'll keep in mind that we remember the preseason incident. He chose not to get surgery. Now that's lower body, obviously, but whether that's hampering him as well, we don't know. But it's clear that his one-timer isn't the same. Mm-hmm. He's had difficulty putting power into it, controlling it, controlling the accuracy. He is not the same player that he was when he joined the lineup and ran off all of those power play goals.
And as we mentioned, what started as the Logan Thompson versus Sam Montembeault show turned into the Charlie Lindgren versus Jakub Dobeš show by the end of the game. Montembeault leaving the game with about 8 minutes left in the second period. No official word as to what's going on. No update on his status. Replay. It was the most bizarre thing. Like, we came back from commercial break and suddenly the broadcasters were like, okay, well, just FYI, during the commercial break, Jakub Dobeš is now in net. Because it was so surprising because nothing had happened, seemingly, to warrant Sam Montembeault coming out of the game. Replays, there was one shot where it looked like he was maybe favoring his left hamstring when he was but we don't know, Rick. We don't know the reason why Sam Montembeault left and if he's going to be out for any amount of time.
Jakub Dobeš spotted it. And yes, he was favoring his left side. He didn't look particularly good on the goal that he allowed. Dobeš spotted that and was warming up in the tunnel for about 5 minutes before he went in. Fortunately, he had talked to Rammer, the medical specialist, and said, did you see what I'm seeing? Should I get ready? And he was given the go ahead. No update. If now all of that said, he wasn't showing any ill effects after the game. He was high-fiving his teammates. He gave a big hug to Dobeš, who was really good in
relief.
In relief. And so who knows whether he'll be available for Sunday night or not. If he's not, that probably means that Caden Primo will be recalled to act as the backup, which affects the Laval Rocket. And you know what? We're going to talk about the Laval Rocket in minutes here.
We are. And just an aside on that, if you're wondering, they could call up Jacob. No, Jacob Fowler is not currently on an NHL contract. Remember, his ELC starts, he has signed it, but it does not start until next season. He's currently on an AHL contract, so he is not eligible for a recall to Montreal. So,
but domino effect. That means Fowler gets the net in Laval if all of that plays out.
All right. Well, we seem to want to talk about Habs prospects. So why don't we just do that and get into the Habs prospects report?
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
Before we get to the Laval, let's first talk about Dmitry Kostenko, 22-year-old defenseman who's playing for Khimik Voskresensk of the VHL. If you remember that name, Dmitry Kostenko, congratulations. And because he was drafted back in 2021 in the third round, 87th overall by the Canadiens. But he is making a little bit of a name for himself over there, Rick.
So he now holds the record for most points among under 23 blue liners in the history of the VHL. Yeah, he has 20 points in 40 games. Now that's happened over 3 seasons. And this season, the playoffs continue for Kostenko and his team. So far this year, he has 7 points in 11 games. They're waiting for their next opponent, which I think was his team last year. But yes, he has set the record and is, only going to build on that record as long as the playoffs continue for him and his team.
Speaking of waiting for an opponent, that is what Laval has been doing and continues to do. They did actually finish out their season. I mentioned last week they had one more game to play on the road in Belleville last Saturday night. And they did, in fact, I will say kudos and all credit to the Belleville Senators. They had been eliminated from the playoffs going into that last game last Saturday night. And they did not just roll over and let Laval have it. That game went to overtime, Laval having to beat Belleville 5-4. So full credit to the Belleville Senators for still having the pride in their game to want to make it competitive. But that win did allow Laval, with their final record for the season of 48-19-3-2, to officially cross the 100-point mark. They finished with 101 points, first in the North, first in the AHL. A tremendous, tremendous season from start to finish for Pascal Vincent's crew. And it was just... It's going to be amazing to see what they do in the playoffs. They just have to wait around because the play-in rounds are taking place right now. They're waiting to find out who they're actually going to play. Right now, the Cleveland Monsters and Toronto Marlies are playing a best-of-3 play-in series, and so the winner of that series will face Laval in the first divisional semifinal round. And of note, Cleveland is currently leading that series 1-0. So if Toronto does not win game 2, they are facing elimination in game 3.
They are facing elimination in game 2.
Well, yes, they are facing elimination. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If they have to win, game 2. Tyler Thorpe, you remember that he signed his ELC as well. He made his AHL debut on April 19th, which was that final game of the season. So he did get into that game. In news, basically kind of coming out after the season is over, first off, Caden Primo and Connor Hughes are sharing the Harry Hap Holmes Memorial Award that is given to the team who gives up the goaltenders with the team who gives up the fewest goals per game during the regular season. That's going to Caden Primo and Connor Hughes this year, along with Syracuse's goaltenders, because the Crunch and the Rocket evened out in this category, but a very big deal for Caden Primo and Connor Hughes. And really good for them. What's even more impressive is that Pascal Vincent was named the AHL Coach of the Year.
Congratulations, and well deserved.
Well deserved. It's absolutely tremendous what he has done for the affiliate this year. Also, we mentioned Connor Hughes a moment ago. He has already confirmed that he will not be back in the AHL with Laval or anyone else next year. He's going to return to Switzerland. And as I said to you before the show, Rick, and why wouldn't you? Why would, there's going to be a Primo and Fowler, and who knows where Dobesh is going to be. And I think that's probably a pretty smart move for Connor Hughes.
Makes sense.
So we're still in a holding pattern, waiting for Laval's playoff season to start. But the Trois-Rivières Lions have started their run in the Kelly Cup playoffs. In fact, they just went ahead and swept the Reading Royals in 4 games, 2 at home, 2 on the road, and they advanced to the second round for the first time. For the first time in franchise history, they're advancing to the second round, and so now they have to wait, Rick, for their opponent because they don't know who that's going to be yet.
It's either going to be the Wheeling Nailers. Wheeling is the affiliate, the ECHL affiliate of the Penguins, or the Norfolk Admirals. They are the affiliate of the Winnipeg Jets. Whichever team it is, Trois-Rivières will host Game 1 of that series, and that'll start next Friday.
Absolutely, May 2nd. So congratulations to them. Exciting to see the affiliates of the Montreal Canadiens also finding success. Looking forward to Laval getting started very soon. General hockey notes. The Canadiens Capitals game has not been the only one this week that's had some shenanigans. No secret that, the Leafs are up 3-0 in the series against the Ottawa Senators, and Ottawa, those games have been a bit chippy. We saw Anthony Stolarz absolutely get fed up with Weirdly Greg this week, took his own penalty because just absolutely cross checks and slashes and threw him to the ice, and was
could have been 4 penalties for Stolarz on the play.
Could have been. So in the next game after that, former Canadiens forward Nick Cousins earned himself a fine and earned his team a $25,000 fine. Because, while Anthony Stolarz was up near center ice stretching during warmups, Nick Cousins just thought it'd be okay if he just fired some pucks at him. Apparently the league didn't take too kindly to that.
Cousins has been known as a bit of a disturber, even when he was with Montreal.
Yes. The Lou era is over. How many guys on the New York Islanders are going to start growing facial hair right away? Lou Lamoriello is out.
Patrik, what?
Lou Lamoriello, New York Islanders announcing that Lamoriello's contract will not be renewed as president and GM. That is certainly an end of an era, Rick.
Tip of the cap to him. Stick tap. He's 82 years old. He's been one of those hockey minds that everybody talks about in the NHL, and it's an end of an era for sure with the New York Islanders. At the
other end of the spectrum, and yet still in the same state, the New York Rangers announced a multi-year contract extension for president and GM Chris Drury.
Lots of folks saying he's the source of some of their issues, but the higher ups in the Rangers organization don't see it that way and have signed Drury to an extension.
Before we take our first break here and really get into the meat and potatoes,
this is a big issue.
Really get into the meat and potatoes of this playoff series and what the Canadiens managed to do on Friday night. We have one last piece of news that we need to talk about. And it's the fact that buses in the city of Montreal will not have Go Habs Go on their display boards. No. Don't worry, they're supportive. It's just they're supportive of their team and the excitement that the city has about their hockey team. But instead, those buses will have to display Allez Canadiens, Allez.
Yeah, when you see the front of the bus, and they've got the display board above at the top of the windshield, and it tells you what bus it is, what route it is, where it's going, all those kinds of things. And sometimes there are little promotional messages. It's not unheard of that during the playoffs there would be the STM would show support for the Montreal Canadiens, but somebody didn't like seeing Go Habs Go, and so they complained, this was some time ago, about the use of Go Habs Go to the Quebec language police. So an order came down, and the STM reprogrammed all of their buses starting last fall, and they completed that process early this year. But the story's not over there.
So with the Habs making the playoffs, this has now churned up into a little bit of a fan contention kind of thing. And so on Friday, the Jean-François Roberge, the minister responsible for the French language, said that Go Habs Go, quote, is a unifying expression rooted in our history, which is part of our cultural and historical specificity. It's been used for decades. It's a Quebecism, and we're proud of it.
So get it back on the buses.
Get it back on the buses.
Put Go Habs Go back.
But
however,
STM chairman Eric Allen Caldwell said what, Rick?
He said, quote, unfortunately, no changes can be made in the short term as we insist on using the usual update process, which take place in the fall, in order to avoid investing additional resources. And he complained about his budget, that he wasn't he took the opportunity to complain about his budget. But
how long does it take to retype?
No, you can't do it. Mr. Caldwell said, so no, it is as it there'll be no Go Habs Go until we reprogram the buses next fall.
So fans in the Bell Center, please do not chant Go Habs Go. Please chant Allez Canadiens, Allez, because apparently
no, they're good. They're good. The language minister said
Go Habs Go is fine.
Yeah, he said fine.
Oy, I don't know. These things. All right, we're going to take our first break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. We are going to hear from the fine folks and our sponsors over at DraftKings. On the other side, how are the Canadiens earning respect this playoff series? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how they're doing it and how they're not doing it. What does that mean? Well, you're going to have to stick around to find out. You are listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Ready to win some real cash during the basketball playoffs? Check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition, including prize picks. Hit all your picks and score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6, plus even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast, right here on Rocket Sports Radio. Once again, my name is Amy Johnson. If you'd like to follow me on X or Twitter, whatever you still call it, you can find me there at Flyers Rule. And of course, with me is my co-host Rick Stevens, president and founder here at Rocket Sports. You'll want to follow him as well at Rocket Sports. That is our main account. That's where you get all of our content, all of the updates about the Canadiens and the Laval and Trois-Rivières. It all happens right there at Rocket Sports. And if you want, you can also follow this podcast at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. One thing we want you to be sure you do right now, if you haven't done so already, take a second and tap that subscribe button, whether you're on YouTube or listening to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Takes just a second. Subscribe to the podcast. You never want to miss an episode. Every Saturday, it's out on podcast platforms. Every Monday, it's out on our YouTube channel. And you just don't want to miss any of it. So be sure to subscribe. Okay, so after what is really, honestly, a very unexpected trip to the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Montreal Canadiens, maybe kind of surprisingly, are very much in this first round matchup against the Washington Capitals, which might have seemed, I'm not even going to say might, which seemed very unlikely when the series started. But the Canadiens have really found a way to get under the skin and rattle the league's second best team during the regular season.
Now, I predicted, my only prediction for this series was that it wouldn't end in a sweep for either team, and it will not.
It will not, because as we talked about,
Canadiens are in it.
Canadiens are in it. It's a 2-1 series lead for the Washington Capitals. That is a much different prospect heading into Game 4 than if the Canadiens were down 3-0. And they have the advantage of playing in the Bell Center again on Sunday night. So they have a chance on home ice in front of their fans to even up the series. And that's a pretty incredible thing, because then it just starts all over again. Then it becomes a best of 3 after that. And I'm not sure that anyone thought that the Canadiens could get themselves into this kind of a position. So what's happened over those first 3 games to get us here? We're not going to actually talk about what they have done. We're going to talk about what they haven't. We're going to play a round of what it's not. How did we get here? Here's what it's not. And we're going to start at the most obvious place, which is number 1. They're not being carried by the offense of their big new sniper, Patrik Laine.
Patrik Laine, when he's on his game, is absolutely lethal. And we saw that when he returned to the lineup in December. He's the clear leader of the Canadiens in terms of power play goals, scoring 15 power play goals, 20 overall in just 52 games. But you know his one-timer was indefensible during a stretch. And it was almost automatic that he would get it on his stick and it would be in the back of the net. And yeah, let's talk about that. That's what it's not. They're not being led by the offense of Patrik Laine, but what it is, it's Cole Caulfield. And Cole Caulfield, he was quiet on the power play while Patrik Laine was going through this period. And now it's caused a bit of a resurgence, and it's Cole Caulfield who has been providing and leads the Canadiens in goal scoring in the playoffs. And what a beautiful pass by Hudson.
Laine Hudson, my goodness.
He stepped in front of Ovechkin to intercept the out and put it right on Caulfield's stick. That was a beautiful goal. It's Cole Caulfield, not Patrik Laine. And listen, it's one day after the Friday game, and absolutely no one is talking about how much the Canadiens missed Patrik Laine in the lineup when he was a scratch for An upper body injury.
Yeah.
Sorry, a lower upper body injury.
Upper
That's
body
correct.
injury.
That's
Yep,
correct.
That is correct. Number 2, what it's not, the Habs are not being carried by their veteran defensemen. Unlike 2021, the Habs are not being carried by their veteran defensemen.
Yeah, all the analysis prior to the series was the Canadiens' biggest perceived vulnerability against Washington and their big skilled forwards. It was the defense, particularly the young defensemen on the Canadiens, and they were going to be exposed, and the Capitals would take advantage of their youth and inexperience, and for sure, we talked about Game 1 and the first period, but since then, Hudson and Gooley have easily outperformed the veterans, Matheson and Savard. David Savard, everybody loves him and should, but he's really, really struggled through this series, and seeing him on his belly, and I know that's his thing, but not, they're working around David's. That is, the Capitals are working around David Savard when he flops on the ice, and the little pirouette he did and a dive got a penalty, the power play for Montreal, but it's just not his game. He's playing about 10 minutes a game. Matheson really struggling, and it's Hudson and Gooley that look like they made the adjustment. Hudson said, I'm learning, and I've had to learn, but he is learning at warp speed, and both of them are looking pretty good.
They are. So the Canadiens are not being carried by the offense of Patrik Laine. They are not being carried by their veteran defensemen. Thirdly, they are not being carried by their goaltending. And yeah, I mean, Montembeault's made some spectacular saves, but there's other times that he's not looking so good.
Yeah, he's allowed some goals he would have liked back. And listen, I know his supporters will point to goals saved above average, above expectation, goals saved above expectation per 60, and there he's sixth best in the playoffs so far. The problem is you're not competing against all of the other goalies; you're competing against one, and Logan Thompson has been outperforming Montembeault. Now, when you look at the stats, Logan Thompson is just ahead of Sam Montembeault in terms of goals saved above expected. But it's Montembeault that his goals saved above expected is about half a goal a game. For Logan Thompson, it's 1 goal a game. So Montembeault, if he's back, has to be better. But listen, the Canadiens they won. The reason they won Game 3 was not because of their goaltending. And they were able to, Dobish came in and I'm sure he was and he said he was nervous, but he was adequate and got the job done in Game 3 for his first NHL playoff win. But the Canadiens, it can't be said that the Canadiens are being carried by their goaltending in the playoffs.
No. And we don't. The thing is now with injuries to both goaltenders, we don't know what the outlook is for the next game, even for goaltending at either end of the ice. So things change very quickly. Things change very, very quickly. All right. Fourthly, they are not being carried by a single tough guy. It's kind of like across the board, Rick.
When you look at, it's been team toughness, and if you look at a stat like hits, and it's interesting that Yuri Slafkovsky's not on the top list, being led in hits by Josh Anderson, number 2 Emil Heineman, Number 3, Brendan Gallagher. Number 4, Caden Gooley. And then I think Slavkovsky slots in after that. Now, bringing in Arbor Xhekaj seemed to change the tone of the game, but still, it was all about team toughness. There's lots of fans of Michael Pezzetta. We hear from them on X. We hear from them on our Substack. And if you look back and some point to the history that Michael Pezzetta fought Tom Wilson. That was back on April 6th of 2023 in Montreal, and it was Pezzetta who had delivered a pretty stiff check to Nick Dowd. Wilson came to the defense of his teammate, dropped the gloves with Pezzetta. They tussled. There wasn't really a fight, and then Wilson wrestled Pezzetta to the ice. And really, the whole affair didn't have much of an impact on that game, and I don't expect it would have any impact on if Pezzetta was brought into the lineup. Oliver Kapanen was the right choice to replace Patrik Laine. Oliver Kapanen is a center, so it allowed that fourth line with Heineman and Armia, and then that put Evans, Demidov, and Newhook together, which was a terrific line at the end of Game 2 and into Game 3. But there was, as I said, team toughness, and that's been spread around. And then there was also the Arbor Xhekaj effect.
Well, we talked about this a little bit a few moments ago, how, there was an enormous ovation for Xhekaj as soon as he came onto the ice for warm-ups. I think the fans were clamoring to have him in the lineup to bring that edge, bring that toughness. I think his teammates really felt that as well. You saw Josh Anderson had some things to say about it after the game. Just Arbor Xhekaj being in the lineup changes almost the personality. And it was one of the commentators on TNT last night that was talking about the fact that just with him on the ice, before with him on the ice, the rest of the team knows, okay, maybe I can do some things and get away with something. Arbor's here now. It's kind of like he's got our back. That there's an added element of toughness and grit and a little bit of edge that's going to come. And that has an effect both for the team he plays with and the team that he's playing against. But
it's not only about Arbor Xhekaj. It has to be the entire team. The entire team. And Tom Wilson is the guy that leads the bully parade for the Capitals. So why not gang up on the bully? And I found this very interesting. This clip we're going to play is Elliot Friedman and Kevin Bieksa, and they talk about the Canadiens as a collective group targeting the bully, Tom Wilson.
Okay, so this was brewing, and it was brewing ever since Xhekaj showed up on the ice for the warm-up. The Canadiens fans were excited, and him and Wilson, they're lipping at each other. We were all thinking about this. And then watch the Canadiens during the game. They start to go after Wilson a little bit. He hits Evans. Look at Demidov. Takes the legs out from underneath him. You're not thinking that he's the kind of guy who's going to do that. And then watch here, Matheson and Dvorak. And Kevin's in the green room saying, what?
I'm saying these guys would never do this in the regular season or if Xhekaj was not in the lineup. It's like what we say, everyone gets 20 pounds heavier, 3 inches bigger. It's been Anderson versus Xhekaj all series. Now all of a sudden it's Anderson versus Wilson. Now it's Xhekaj and Anderson versus Wilson, and everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. They all feel like they can take shots at Wilson because at the end of the day, Anderson or Xhekaj is going to be the one that answers the bell. So you're seeing everybody chip away at Tom Wilson right now.
And that clip, most surprising was Demidov. And listen, he was physical throughout Game 3. But this sneaky little slewfoot,
Yeah, that he got away with.
Demidov on Tom Wilson, incredible.
Absolutely. And it wasn't like, well, maybe I'll just, no, there was no hesitation. He just took his legs right out from underneath of him. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And yeah, you could see Elliot Friedman goes on to say towards the end of that little segment that they were wondering, with all of the abuse that Tom Wilson is taking from the entire team in this game, when is he going to blow his lid? And of course, the answer to that came at the end of the second period with, when he just blew his top with
Josh Anderson,
Josh Anderson, and probably yapping it at Arbor Jacki during that as well. So I would imagine Jacki is going to be back in the lineup for game 4. I will be interested to see how Washington responds, because I think they're going to, if everyone else caught on to this, then they're going to have caught on to this as well. And what's that going to mean for Tom Wilson? What's that going to mean for the team around Tom Wilson? And it might be a really, could get ugly. It could get a lot tighter played. We'll see. So all of those things, let's just recap those 4 things for a minute. So how did what it's not for the Canadiens to get to this point? It's not that they're being carried by Patrik Laine. They're not being carried by their veteran defensemen. They're not being carried by their goaltending. They're not being carried by just one single tough guy. We've given you all the reasons in opposition of what those things do mean. So that all leads to the question of, can the Canadiens rely on this momentum generated in game 3 to propel them forward in game 4? Connor McDavid has talked about momentum in the playoffs, and he said this.
Momentum is a thing that everyone loves to talk about. There is no momentum in a playoff series. It's one game at a time, and game 6 is history, and we're ready for game 7, and ready to get going.
So this was a year ago, back to May 2024. This was after Game 6. Edmonton had been down in that series to Vancouver. Canucks had led the series 3-2. Edmonton beat Vancouver 5-1 to tie the series 3-3. So now the reporters saying, well, you got the momentum in going into Game 7, and very correctly, Connor McDavid said there's just no such thing as momentum in the playoffs. And I've heard it described as momentum is kind of a moving train in the playoffs. I don't know that. Like that kind of analogy kind of says you can jump on a moving train if you can and hold on. Momentum is more like a bucking bronco, where it's very fleeting, and it can change absolutely at a moment's notice. So the Canadiens can't rely on what happened in Game 3. They can't rely on the fact that the crowd had the same effect will have the same effect on, and the atmosphere of the Bell Center will have the same effect on boosting the Canadiens or, unnerving the Washington Capitals. Everything is game by game, as McDavid said, and you have to keep creating and working together to get underneath the other team.
Spencer Carberry is, of course, the head coach of the Washington Capitals. And after the loss on Friday night, he had a very thoughtful and insightful response to a question that basically asked him about what Montreal is like as a playoff opponent and what his team needs to do in response to turn things around in Game 4.
They're a really good hockey team that's playing very, very well since the Four Nations and down the stretch and all that stuff. And they've got a line that's playing as good as any line in the National Hockey League right now. so that they're a good team and they're going to push you and they're going to play like they did tonight. They gave us all sorts of issues, so you got to tip your cap. And like I said, I think this was after Game 1 or Game 2. There's no way that the Montreal Canadiens are going to go quietly into the night when we're up, just because we're up 2-0 and won 2 games at home. So we all knew that and understood that. And we also know that it's going to take our absolute best from the Washington Capitals to win the series. I know that for a fact. So we are going to have to be at our best for Game 4, Game 5, and the rest of the series in order to win the series. That's just a fact. So we weren't at our best tonight, and so we need to get to that level in Game 4.
There's a blueprint. There's how the opposition coach views your team. Mm-hmm. So no, you can't rely on the crowd. You can't rely on the fact that Arber Xhekaj in the lineup is going to have the same effect. You can't do any of that. But you have to realize, as Carberry says, if you're a Montreal Canadien, that you have a really good team. You have a great first line, and that when you're giving your best, you can compete with any other team in the league, and that's the blueprint. It's not relying on the momentum generated, although it was spectacular from Game 3.
You also have to realize, if you're the Montreal Canadiens, that Spencer Carberry could very well win the Jack Adams this year. He is a very good coach, and he will make adjustments. He will have his team prepared for all of the things that got them off their game in Game 3. He will have them prepared for Game 4. Mm-hmm. All right, so that leads us to our Canadiens Connection question of the week. Which Habs player has shown the most heart and character in this series in your eyes? That's what we want to know, because I think after Game 1, maybe fans were a little bit nervous. After Game 2, kind of got really anxious. And suddenly, it's a whole new series after Game 3. And there were definitely some players who put it all out there on the ice. One of the words Rick has in the title of this episode is grit, in addition to heart. We want to know from you, in your eyes, which Habs player has shown the most heart and character in this series so far. Tell us why. Tell us who it is. If it's more than one, tell us that. Send us a text on the Rocket Sports text line, 5853-ROCKET. Leave us a comment on YouTube, InsideTheCanadiens.com, or drop us a message, either a DM or a reply on X, Facebook, or Instagram at Habs Connection. We're going to take your best responses and read them here on the show next week. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely tremendous. So make sure you get your responses in. It's going to be exciting, Rick. Game 4. We don't have too long to wait. It's going to be, might be a nail biter.
I bet it will be.
Yeah, I bet it will be too. All right, we are going to take one more quick break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. When we come back, we are reading your responses to last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. You're not going to want to miss those. Maybe yours is in there. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Ready to win some real cash during the basketball playoffs? Check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 posterizes the competition, including Prize Picks. Hit all your picks and score higher minimum payouts on Pick 6, plus even more cash if you outscore the competition. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. So download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days.
Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And welcome back to episode 345 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, follow us at Habs Connection. Be sure you subscribe. Leave us a review if you're able to do that on your preferred podcast platform. And whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, really, in addition to subscribing, the one thing you could do to really help us out would be to share the episode. Just tap share. Choose your favorite social media platform, send it out to your followers and say, hey, if you like the Habs, you got to check this out. It's the best way to help us, and we would really appreciate that. Don't forget, send us your answers to this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. Which Habs player has shown the most heart and character in this series in your eyes? We're very much looking forward to seeing who has made the biggest impact for you in that area. Last week we had kind of it's 3 games later, so it's interesting to see how this question has turned out. But the question last week was, are the Canadiens truly underdogs in their first round playoff series against the Capitals?
And if you ask Spencer Carberry, I think he answered that question with that clip that we played. I don't think he sees the Canadiens as big underdogs in this series. He's taking them very seriously and encouraging his team to do the same. I will say that our listeners are very confident. We received all kinds of messages on the Rocket Sports text line 5853 Rocket that had the Habs winning in either 6 or 7 games. Here's one from. Well, I guess that's a point. I don't know who this is from. When you do use the Rocket Sports text line, do us a favor and say, this is my first name. And here's where I am. This comes from a 519 area code. So that would be the Kitchener-Waterloo area, I think. And he or she says the Habs obviously win in 6. And that prediction is still valid. The Canadiens would have to run the table, but that's still on the table, and he or she has a chance of that being correct.
And what did I say last week? Washington in 6?
I think that's what you
I said Washington in 6. So I'm sorry.
And you got a lot of hate mail about it, but yes,
I probably did. I'm sorry. I always hope for the best and prepare for the worst. It's kind of like that's what I always do.
Our dear friend Sam Cosentino with Sportsnet, and who will be on the podcast as we head into the draft, he predicted the Habs in 7.
All right, Sam.
I trust Sam about the draft, and why not? Why not for the series?
Well, that's true. Our friend Leonid dropped us a comment on YouTube, not necessarily to answer this Canadiens Connection of the Week question of the week. He wanted to reply to the fact that we had put the Habs prospect spotlight on Kanyushkov, Bogdan Kanyushkov. So he says, great show, thanks. Speaking of Kanyushkov, the future of the young talent is a little uncertain. He conquered the coach's trust, but unfortunately Igor Larionov was fired at the end of the season. Larionov's system is very unusual, and a hockey player who was good in this system can disappear in any other. So a goal in the VHL is great, but what's going to happen with him in the new KHL season? I hope that I will be wrong and that Bogdan will continue his development.
Yeah, Larionov put a lot of trust in Kanyushkov, and he repaid the coach. He absolutely flourished in that system. So it's something to watch, definitely. Thank you, Leonid, for that.
Yes, astute observation.
From our dear friend, Center Ice 7948, he says, great show again. I'm so happy I was wrong and that the Habs made the playoffs. However, I hate to say this, but I do see the Caps sweeping us.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Well,
he's going to say, next week, he's going to say, I'm so happy I was wrong. He says the Caps have too much size and experience. They play a heavy game. We'll expose our size issues. All of that was pretty evident in the first period of game one. Caps also have a lot of experience to go along with that, says Center Heiss. Remember, though, it's going to be a great learning experience for the Habs. I'd be shocked if we stole the game.
I guess
so
color him shocked.
He's shocked today. We can all be proud, even though we'll have a quick exit. Tip of our hats to our Habs for arriving in the playoffs much sooner than we expected. Great job, Habs. Unfortunately, I don't think it will be enough time for Demidov to be a factor in this series. We'll ask him about his slew foot. And too soon, as he still needs an adjustment period to the NHL. And yeah, we're not expecting him to be a conqueror. I will say that, and just pausing this reading of the email, I will say last week, the name of our podcast, episode 344, included our description of Demidov as as a possible X factor in the series. Now, does Spencer Carberry listen to our podcast? Because he, a couple days later, in one of his media availabilities, called Demidov an X factor in the series. Ooh. And it came after. Continuing on, Center Ice says, this will be a great experience for Demidov to carry in years to come. Keep the great shows coming. We will certainly try to do that. And thanks for that, Center Ice.
Yes, we will do that. So be sure to get your responses in on this week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. Which Habs player has shown the most heart and character in this series so far? And the series will continue. Game 4 in Montreal, Sunday night, 6:30 p.m. And just announced earlier in the day on Saturday, Game 5, which will take place, of course, back in Washington, is set now for Wednesday, April 30th at 7 o'clock p.m. And we will see if a Game 6 is needed. We can probably expect that later in the week. But right now, Game 4 on Sunday night, Game 5 on Wednesday. First one's in Montreal. Second one's in Washington.
Yeah, Game 6 will be Friday. We just don't know what time, if necessary, of course.
All right. There you have it. So we know for sure as well that Saturday, May 3rd is our next episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast. Oh boy. If we had fun talking about this one today, what will this week have in store for us to talk about next week? You are going to have to come back and join us to find out. And we hope it's going to be filled with lots of excitement, just like today's was. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Enjoy playoff hockey. Absolutely. And go Habs go. And we will see you back here again for another great episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.